So over here, we're going to jump in and we're going to have a Q&A and we're going to discuss, but we've got about 13 minutes left. Here are some interesting thoughts that we picked up, my friends and I, we kind of picked up along the way. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. There's no time. People are innovating. We're in a highly competitive space where we are trying to change the world in whatever we do. Whether you go to a Boeing or a NASA or a research job, or anything to join a startup, people are trying to do things. Either lead, follow, or just get out of the way because you're not supposed to be there. Being a leader is great, but you have to follow sometimes. And sometimes following is more rewarding than leading. This whole thing of leadership is fantastic, but leaders have to lead great people, and to be a great person, to be on a team, you have to know how to follow right and follow well. And that includes, speaking up, asking the right questions, challenging, right? But if you're not doing any of that, just get out of the way because you're wasting everybody's time. Okay, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. This is my all-time favorite. A lot of people are, they take these corporate jobs or engineering jobs, and then they're like, well, I'm working 100 hours a week. Well, what did you expect? Was they going to make a separate desk for you where you could work 10 hours a week and get out of here? If you know what you're getting into, which is what we go back to, is learn the rules of the game. Once you know the rules of the game, then you can play the game. Then you can understand, what are my options? What are my risks? What are my risk capabilities? What's my safety net? If you can't handle all of that, move on to something else. The world is for the taking. It's yours for the taking. But if you are not going to get with the program on what industry you're joining, or you realize you get into finance and now you have to do PowerPoint presentation decks for all your clients, and you complain about that, that's nobody's fault but yours. You didn't do enough research. You didn't know what job you're getting into. If you joined, so one of my offers that I got after graduation was a soft offer in Japan, in Yokohama, for Japanese Gasoline Corporation. The guy told me, he's like, for 3 years you're going to be doing 2D conversion to 3D conversion of drawings. I was like, for how many years? He's like, 3 years. I was like, no, I'm out. See, he didn't give me the offer. I was like, can I have the offer? He's like, I'm not going to give you the offer because your face literally went white. And I know that this is not going to be good for you. And I was like, absolutely not. I don't want to do that. But there are people who jump into these jobs. So I'm going to be working in Japan, which is fantastic. Understand the Japanese work culture. In Japan, there's a very strong work culture where you and the employer are one. I would have to live on the factory campus. I'm a social person. You'll probably see me having drinks later after this somewhere on a bar down at Tech Square. I like those things in my life. I know it's important for me to do. So that would not be something I want to get into. And if I got into that kitchen and I complained about it, there's nobody else to blame but me. So this is something that we came up with a while back. Life is a canvas and our actions the paint. Let's create something beautiful, right? So when I came up with this little, whatever you call it, was when I took art and music at Oxford. So the Oxford program mandates that you do art and music. The first thing I said was, that's ridiculous. I'm an aerospace engineer. I do not want to study art and music. That's absurd. That's for the liberals. And it's, but then when I did do it, it was the biggest life-changing moment of my life. Literally, it was, I was listening to classical music this morning before the talk. I wake up to classical music every day now just because I took that. And as engineers, we keep getting bogged down that we're better than everybody else. Because we're doing aerospace, we're better than other engineers. Because we're doing engineering, we're better than the lawyers and the doctors. Because ours is so hard and it's so tough, and we have to take 19-hour semesters and look at how tough CFD and thermodynamics is. But you know what? Honestly, the hardest class that I took at Georgia Tech was probably in economics. I'd take aeroelasticity 3 times a year if I could. If I could just not do another economics class in micro. Because as engineers, we realize, this is deviating a little bit from this, but it's something I want to talk about, is as engineers, we realize that there's a system of rules, and we apply the rules, and then we come out with conclusions, and we use physical theory, chemical theory, biological theory to come up with rules. In economics, in finance, in the arts, there are no rules. You make the rules. When you're looking at a yield curve and you understand, okay, what is this yield curve? There's no physical principle behind it apart from the fact that a bunch of economists back in the day came up with it and they modeled the world around it. That's incredible. The Human Development Index was made up by us to look at ourselves. That's crazy because it's very difficult for us to, as engineers, to put ourselves out of that situation. When there's no rules, what do? Right? And that's what economics and finance teaches you. You make the rules. You figure out how to make value out of nothing. We make value out of physical constraints, which is great, which is tough, because we have to understand the physical constraints. But when there's no constraint, then what do you do? So I'd really urge you guys, if you could take a finance class, you know, the intro to finance classes are great, but if you could take something a little deeper, do it for fun. I found out last week, that I don't even have a certificate in finance. I thought this entire time I'd done enough finance classes, but turns out I did the wrong classes because I just did them because I cared about them. I didn't care about having a certificate in finance. I just wanted to learn derivative securities. I wanted to learn personal finance. I wanted to learn real estate stuff. So I just did the classes, and then the Sheller College of Business emailed me and said, what are you talking about, certificate of finance? You did random stuff. I'm like, okay, cool, I don't care, because that's what I wanted to do anyway. That's what it comes down to, is like, get out there and try to expand your mind. And art and music, if you can take a class in it, that stuff is pretty cool. It really dictates the entire world around you, and you really see it with a different perspective. So I mentioned this before, data is only as good as the dollars it generates. I had a very quick lesson in this when I was an intern in the UK, because I was doing cycle time calculations, trying to optimize the factory, do all these crazy things, and they were like, okay, you're this 22-year-old student, you know nothing. And I was like, okay, honestly, let's be real, I know nothing about the real world. I only know about what my aerospace degree talks about. And I was collecting all of this data, but where was it going? When I presented it to the CEO, he was like, okay, this is fantastic, but I can only use like 5% of the data. You wasted 95% of your time. So I had to go back and say, okay, fine, what is the point of collecting all of this data if I can't, what are the needs of the other party? So I need to now, back to the 5 why. Why am I collecting the data? Why does the CEO care? Why does my boss care? When you can align all of that, then you can go in and collect the right data towards the right goals. So I mentioned this, choose yourself, because no one else is going to.